Mike. All right, let's get into this. The new charges brought upon the Tate Brothers extradition to UK. I'm gonna let it play. Then I'm gonna get into my opinion on the situation, whether you like the Tate Brothers or not. Um, trying to give some bird's eye, uh, 3,000 mile commentary on what I see that's going on with these two. Let me get it cracking.
New charges in total have now been authorised against Andrew and Tristan Tate, bringing the total number of charges faced to 59. The charges relate to 7 victims spanning a period from 2010 to 2017. Our officers have worked closely with the CPS and both national and international law enforcement agencies as part of this complex investigation. I can now confirm that officers from the United States have arrested both Andrew and Tristan Tate in relation to this matter overnight, and they have been detained pending ongoing legal proceedings. I want to make it clear, there is no place for male violence against women and girls in our society, and we will continue to work tirelessly to support victims and investigate all reports made to us. Thank you very much.
We, of course, are going to fight extradition, so the court will set a hearing during which we will argue the merits of our position. We'll be looking at the 4th prong of the test, which is the probable cause prong. We believe that we have strong grounds, and we will make that argument to the court at the appropriate time. I don't see any set of circumstances where the judge will want to do that today. If our clients happen to get released today, then God bless America, but I think that the chances of release today are slim to none. And that does not have anything to do with the merits of the case. That is just what happens typically in these situations. The court needs time to adjust and understand what's going on. We're going to need to examine the paperwork that comes over from the United Kingdom. We'll make our arguments in a few weeks, and then we'll let the chips fall where they may. We think these charges are salacious and defamatory charges. Andrew and Tristan Tate have been accused of the most heinous acts that 2 men could be accused of for the past several years, but in multiple courts of competent jurisdictions across the world. In the United States, Romania, they have consistently been found innocent. The case in Romania is falling apart. The origin of that case actually started in Palm Beach, Florida, then Miami, then went to Romania. We subsequently sued the wrongful accuser in that case for defamation in Palm Beach County, where we are in front of Judge Curley. We've been litigating that case since July of 2023. We've survived motions to dismiss. We are wrapping up discovery. That case is supposed to go to trial later this year or very early next year. We haven't lost any substantive hearings in that case whatsoever. We feel confident in our ability to win that case. And we believe that the United Kingdom, who's been after Andrew and Tristan for some time, knows this, and that if we win that case, the entire narrative against Andrew and Tristan will collapse on its face. So the United Kingdom is conjuring up 32 new charges. Some of them are despicable, meritless, heinous, and atrocious. They're designed to poison the jury pool, to re-poison public consciousness. But I think that the level that the United Kingdom has gone in this particular case with this particular set of allegations, these are new allegations that have never been a part of the narrative before. And I think the general public can see that this is a political hit job. It's designed to rob my clients of their due process rights in America.
And yeah, real quick, however you feel about Andrew and Tristan Tate, it should be evident at this point that, they are the victims of, trying to be made an example of. Trying to make an example of all men, right? We kind of live in a more matriarchal, gynocentric society that is desperate to apologize for, I guess, they perceived crimes of the past for men, right? And Andrew and Tristan have, been in the public eye for a while, at least the past 5 years. They've gone viral. They've been attached to the manosphere, which has good and bad commentators. But for the most, they've been advocating for men's rights in certain things, like courts, like what they're going through now, paternity courts and things like that. And maybe some of their topics using their freedom of speech rub some people the wrong way, rub the wrong people the wrong way. So you know, just living in this country, being black, like I said, I know what it's like to be railroaded, right? And it seems like when the system or when the governments have it out for you, they will stack the deck in a way that they're gonna get you one way or the other, right? For the past 3 years, the brothers have been jailed in Romania. They've beaten the cases there. They've beaten the cases in the United States, right? And so to continue to just basically, you know, what they'll do is they'll take one charge and break it down into maybe 4 or 5 different charges, so that even if you beat one element of the charge, it's almost impossible or more difficult to beat all 5 elements of the lesser charges. Okay, so he mentioned earlier that there were 7 original charges that was broken down into 30 different counts and all that shit. And they do that, to stack the deck. Usually when you go to federal court or whatever country you in, and it's you versus the United States of America or you versus Great Britain, that's what it is, right? It's David and Goliath, right? You have to be extremely patient, and you have to have the best lawyers. And if you don't have the money for that type of defense, most of the time you lose, right? And that's what I see here. I see a railroading of them for being unapologetically masculine in their way, right? The things that they've done in the past, other women have come forward and said were that they did strictly voluntary. They wasn't coerced in any way. Even the cam business that they had, the women have come forth to defend them. So why on earth does the system continue to come up with something? They want to have something to put these guys away for. And the bigger picture is so that it so-called sets an example for all toxic men out there, right? And what is toxic masculinity today anyway? Anything that that is proud, anything that you show that you're proud of your masculinity, or is toxic now. Just about anything, right? Anything that's not kowtowing to the female is toxic masculinity, right? It's like a witch hunt, Let me let him finish.
Clear their name. So that will certainly be one of the arguments that we make. We will say, look, there's a long-standing agreement with the Romanian court for the United Kingdom not to extradite. They're violating that court order by meddling in the affairs, not only in the Romanian case, but in the American case as well. And we're going to say, if they're going to get extradited at some point, let's do that after they have their day in court in Florida. They're American citizens. They've availed themselves to the justice system here. They're entitled to have their day in court. They should have their day in court. And then after they have their day in court, if you want to extradite them, well then, there's nothing we can really do about that. But let us have our fair fight here in a system that we trust. The American justice system, the American court system is the greatest system in the world. And we obviously believe that the case that pans out in Palm Beach will chart the course, the international narrative of the litigation that is against Andrew and Tristan in this world. We're confident that we're going to win. We've never seen a scintilla of evidence that indicates that these guys are guilty of anything.
And shit, if you've gone 3, 4, 5 years and haven't been able to convict them on the same or similar charges, then why they keep coming up with new shit? They keep coming up with new victims' claims, and I think a lot of these victims are being coerced to come out against Andrew Tate, or even incentivized, right? That may have been attached to them in the past, and being incentivized to say that there was some wrongdoing was done. It's a witch hunt. It's a witch hunt, right? And I think that's what's obvious. Whether you like Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate or not, I watched some of Andrew's motivational videos. I think he's got some, you know, some intelligent stuff about discipline and men staying fit and sharp and things like that. So, you know, I've seen some of his videos. There's some statements that he made that was a little what's the word? Yeah, that was a little misogynist. But I mean, it's freedom of speech, right? He's got the right to say and feel how he want. But you know, to accuse him of rape and some of the most heinous charges, so that the public opinion of him turn, oh, he must be a child porn rapist and all that shit. You know what I'm saying? I know how law enforcement can exaggerate the charges in the cases, right? And an exaggeration is the same thing as a lie. But by the time you air it out in social media and put it on all the news outlets and let it circulate for a long enough time, people just start to believe the most salacious stuff, even though it's not true. So I think that's the injustice that's being done here. Is there if they can't get them in the criminal court, then they're trying to taint their image in the court of public opinion, and I think it's shit.
Being punished and attacked for what they say, not what they've done. You can love them, you can hate them, but nobody should go to jail for free speech. And that is exactly what this is about. And make no mistake about it, United Kingdom was once the greatest empire the world has ever known. It is a fallen nation, it is a fallen state that prosecutes its citizens for free speech. It puts old ladies in jail for praying the rosary in the street, and hunts down Tommy Robinson and has him locked up in Canada and in other places simply for exercising his free speech rights. If you speak out against that government, they put you in jail. That is not what democracies and free societies do. That is what communist China and despotic regimes do. And we're going to fight them at every turn and at every corner because they are American citizens, and their rights as American citizens should trump any political witch hunt in any other country in the world. Thank you. You're going to be locked up until a decision is made. That's unfortunate. We certainly hope that doesn't happen. Andrew and Tristan have spent a lot of money in preparing for their case in Florida. They should be able to continue to prepare for their case outside as free citizens.
Brothers Andrew and Tristan Tate are on their way back to the UK after being arrested over the weekend in Miami. British prosecutors announced over the weekend that they were seeking the extradition of the influencer duo on charges that they raped and trafficked women between 2010 and 2017. That's in addition to the charges against them in Romania that led to their arrest there in 2022. The two were allowed to leave Romania and fly back to Florida last year.
The Tates have denied the pending charges from the UK and are expected to appear in a Miami federal court early this week. The Tates.
The Tates, I mean, unpleasant people, I would say.
Yes, Ron DeSantis did not even want them to be allowed in Florida. I remember him objecting to granting them the ability to stay, so I'm not sure what happened that they were eventually able to come to Miami. I mean, good riddance. I don't care. They are American citizens, but we have extradition with Britain. If British citizens...
That's what I'm talking about. This is the type of hypocrisy that you see now, right? Obviously, these two disagree with some of the words or some of the commentary of the Tate brothers. And, you know, they're basically saying hurrah, hurrah, that they've been extradited. No evidence has been proven or none of that. But because they don't like what Andrew and Tristan may have said or what they stand for, you know what I mean? He's talking about good riddance. This is the type of, I'm going to let it play, but these are the type of men that society wants you to become. These kind of daytime, gender ambiguous type of men, almost gay look like, right? You know, peons, right? Who are probably really at the lower rung of the male community anyway. So when they feel appreciated or when they feel accepted by the females, You know, when they get their attaboy, then they come out and say, yeah, it's good readings that he gone. Because they think that they're going to, you know, be favored by the women by being agreeable, right? Being little likable peons, right? Not understanding, you know, just dynamics, right? So when you get these guys, you got three people. You got the feminists, right? Then you have to deal with the gays. And if they ain't feminists or gay, then you got to deal with the guys who are otherwise just peons, right? So you got all these guys, you know what I'm saying? All these forces, right, coming out talking about, oh my God, toxic masculinity is ruining society, and we have to do everything that we can do to keep these, right, alpha males at bay, right? Let me let them finish.
Are doing something bad here, we'll send them back to Britain, or vice versa. We, again, allied nation, almost a little bit of what I was talking about. We can criticize the UK. They're still our friends. We get along. They're criminals. Our criminals.
These are these beta males. These are the friend zone males, right? That think that they get some sort of brownie points with women in society by being, you know, agreeable and good boys. You know what I mean? So they come out and they want to speak against strong men like men that are stronger than them, like the Tates, right? They want to come out and speak against toxic. These are the male feminist type motherfuckers, right? Who really are trying to, you know, in a backdoor type of way, you know, get with the women as well, but they just doing it from a pathetic, you know, standpoint.
We're gonna cooperate in this. They're charged with some pretty heinous stuff. I have, I have, I guess, registered a little bit of skepticism about some of the sex trafficking charges that have been thrown at the Tates, because I have seen in the U.S. how sex trafficking as a charge is often a little bit trumped up.
It's a lot trumped up. They can take just about anything and call it trafficking, right? They take a charge where somebody may have crossed state lines and they call it trafficking. Well, the person may have done so consensually. So, you know, when does it become a crime? When you have a certain person that you want to go after, they have the power to reinvent and redraw the lines.
Well, it's prostitution being rounded up to something a lot worse. With when you hear the word sex trafficking, what you think of is women chained to radiators or something in basements,
or minors being
Yeah. And often in the domestically, what's charged as sex trafficking was illegal but consensual sexual contact between adults. No one, not women forced into, except forced in the doing it to earn a living sort of thing.
Economic pressure.
Right, which I kind of reject. I mean, I reject as a kind of force. So that's my skepticism about that term. That said, they were clearly running brothels of some kind, distributing pornography. They're accused of assaulting the women themselves, the way like a pimp would be. So it seems seems to me there's plenty of evidence of criminal stuff. Now, Romania couldn't bring it home for whatever reason. So I guess I would understand people being a little, if you follow this and go, well, Romania couldn't make the charges stick or whatever happened, and they were released, and now the UK wants to try it too. I guess I could see being a little skeptical. They're at this point they failed, and they're just trying to find something to pin on them. Maybe, but I don't care that much.
Well,
I guess.
I think
I'm trying to be fair to them.
Yeah, well, I mean, while being fair to them in the sense that they deny the charges and they will have their day in court, it's also just the case that in terms of the overall weight of evidence, the basis of this extradition now puts the number of alleged victims in Britain at 7. Accusations of rape are, as we said in the introduction, part of that. There is, I think, inevitably a public perception that there's not that much smoke without fire. Now, that's, as I say, they deny.
Yeah, that doesn't motivate me that much because I don't know.
But the overall picture, I think, is more beyond the specificity of the charges. there's the influence that they have had, particularly Andrew Tate, on the so-called manosphere, and he
And
proclaimed.
they don't have shit to do with shit, right? He's trying to go into his influence, and he's got every right to have a YouTube presence. He's got every right to speak, First Amendment right to speak publicly. So once again, this is what I pay attention to. The charges for one, but really the disdain for them that lead to the charges, right? So what? What he's about to say. So what? He said some distasteful things on social media, or that you don't like. Fuck you. I say stuff that people don't like. That doesn't mean that a crime was committed, or that a crime is most likely to have been committed, because basically look what he said on his social media page. Or you somewhat, there's a schadenfreude, you somewhat happy or gleeful that they going through what they going through because you don't like them, right? This is what we got to deal with as humans, is that we have a tendency to not be fair with people because we don't like them. And that's what's happening here. That's what's wrong.
Himself a self-described misogynist, has said all the various things about women being men's property and that sort of thing. So A, I have no time for him at all, irrespective of whether he is ultimately found guilty of criminal acts or not. And B, one of my objections is that I think that that whole sort of hyper-aggressive, hyper-macho caricature is actually a con trick. It's a thing, in my view, sold, like commercially sold, to young men who are insecure or not confident in their place in society, as a sort of panacea. And I think that the version of masculinity that people like the Tate sell is a kind of recipe for unhappiness, really, a recipe for loneliness and isolation and distrust of women and distrust of equal relationships and all that.
Sure, I find them to be loathsome characters. I think their advice to young men is bad and should not be followed, and they don't even actually seem to. Right, they're giving advice to young men who have had difficulty dating, but they don't even seem to evince much interest in women, except only for explicit sexual desire fulfillment. Yeah, they don't evince much interest in anything. He collects cars because he wants to have more cars than someone else, not because he enjoys having cars. It's okay to enjoy things, guys.
Right.
Enjoying things is part of as
opposed to the status, purely the status of it, which seems to be the motivation.
I mean, you can enjoy status too, but it is very unhealthy. But
these guys are the type of guys who, if they had wives or women, and they were in the same room with Andrew and Tristan, their women would be fawning and drooling over them and not these two motherfuckers. Right? By comparison, side by side, and I'm not just talking about them and the Tate, I'm talking about these type of motherfuckers. When you put them next to, men of stature, right? What really happens is they pale in comparison. And if they are married, they're intimidated because they wife, right? They cucks. They cucks by nature. They wife and girlfriend is looking over wishing that she was with a brother like myself, or a brother like Tate, or a brother like, some of the other guys that you might know, right? These guys are peons. They're lapdogs. They're good little boys, and they probably, probably into getting spanked and shit by their woman. They submissives. They have no backbone and they spineless. And these type of haters are the ones always coming out against the men that they have no competition with. They're always coming out. Oh, I don't know why. I don't know why he thinks that's a sign of masculinity. Well, why does he have all those muscles? You really don't need that. That's because you a peon. Right? That's because you don't take pride in your masculinity. You've become a spineless, punching bag for the gynocracy, right? So that's what this type of motherfuckers is, right?
And I think they're bad role models for young men or for figures of the right. one of the early signs that, to me, that people like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson were going in some really weird directions was when they uncritically interviewed them as in a very, wow, look at these guys, aren't they smart kind of way.
Right.
Just very weird. The right, although them aside, other conservative commentators have maintained a pretty, is it, no, this is a bridge too far to these people,
Right.
which I think is good. Now, all of that said, just because they've said horrible things and they have really bad views of everyone, of women, and unhelpful views for men, none of that is a crime and couldn't be prosecuted in its own right. And if I don't, to me, it doesn't seem completely impossible to be the case that really that's all there is to it, and they've been really bad to, they were pimps and such things, which I don't really think should be illegal, but that's really all there is to it, and it's more just that people don't like them. I think that could be the case. We'll have to wait and see. The UK is free to bring charges, and they're going to be returned to the UK to face those charges, and justice is going to work itself out. So I'll pay more attention to look at the actual evidence, and I'll be open-minded. And if the evidence isn't all that compelling, then I will say, well, then they're innocent of that, despite being bad people, which could be the case.
Yeah, look, as I say, they'll have their day in court. I hope it will come to court.
And by the time they get their day in court, this is why I always say, like many people say, I'd rather be carried by 6 than judged by 12. There's so many little bitty ways that prosecution can pick the jury, select certain jurors that will be influenced. They're using public opinion already, letting things leak to the public. So it's going to be hard to find truly impartial jury of their peers. So just because 12 people in a box, say you're guilty of something, or 10 out of 12 in some states, doesn't always mean that you are guilty. There's been plenty of cases that's been overturned because of a trumped up jury, or a misinformed jury, or another trick that prosecutors use is to get a trial date around certain big holidays because they know the jury will be more restless or quick to make a decision so that they can get out of jury duty or close the case, right? So prosecutors have all these little tricks and ways to win a case that are outside of what's actually true in the case. So I don't even trust a jury system to where 12 people get to decide your fate, right? You know what I mean? They don't know the truth. They only have the truth that's presented by the two sides, the prosecution and the defense. And oftentimes the prosecution, like in this case, is going to be heavily funded, represented by the government, and you've got to have a hell of a defense attorney if you're going to, defend yourself against, an entire country of resources that seem to be hell-bent on finding something. They're not going to stop until they find something. Well, I ain't never been a type of person that was interested in being liked by everybody. Some of the shit I say, really probably only 20% of people is going to like. I got a lot of positions I know that a small percent of people are going to get and understand what I'm saying. The other 80, I'm not interested in being everybody's friend or Mr. Popular. You
understand that they are fighting the extradition, and I think there was to be a court hearing about it, or is to be a court hearing about it today. But there is an extradition agreement between the US and the UK, so one would imagine the balance of life.
We want the UK to take sex crimes more seriously. The Conservatives do. Remember?
That's right.
That whole kerfuffle. So they should be returned to face charges.
You know what song come to my mind? For those of you that remember In Living Color, it's a raining man, hallelujah, it's a raining man. This these two motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? Look, first of all, a whole lot can be observed just by looking at body language. Any man that crosses his legs like that is trying to protect their pussy. You know what I'm saying? Men kind of normally sit in a more assertive way, right? And so you got this princess over here. He got his hand folded. He got his hand folded in front of him like this. So passive. You know what I mean? Nothing dominant about the way he's sitting in his own chair, right? He got his hair, look at his hair right here, passive. And then you got homeboy right here covering up covering up the coochie. You know what I'm saying? These are some feminized boys right here.
Alex, shock horror at the sight of my face on a Sunday morning, but I'll take creepiness from Paul Cox any day. I don't mind.
Samara, don't say that. I didn't mean to be.
It's
but
charming.
great to see you.
Now, talking about creepiness, can you explain to me why it is that there are people that something weird has gone on with the right wing of politics, right? When they're banging on all the time about the grooming gang, you know, the rape gangs, how terrible it is that you've got all these Muslim men who treat women like dirt, who are, you know, out and out misogynists, who are trafficking young girls and abusing vulnerable people, making them do despicable, deplorable acts, and they.
So once again, like I said, this is part of, I guess like a collective witch hunt against men and masculinity, and the type of masculinity that can't be tamed, right? That Andrew Tate represent, right? This type of brother right here looks very tameable, right? Not in great shape, unshaven, the type of guy that just kind of agrees with what the women are saying, right? And this is the polite type of fella that I think society is erroneously trying to create, either by trying to recondition young boys to be more empathetic like young girls, right? And by trying to make a witch hunt or a example out of a masculinity that it doesn't like, right? Which includes Andrew Tate, Tristan Tate, other men in the manosphere. Just a witch hunt, right? On the type of masculinity that is less tameable, right? And this is what I'm seeing from my experience, from my lens, right? And I just want you to pay attention to some of these things. I discussed some earlier in the earlier clip that we watched that involved the two British commentators, and I'm checking this out.
We should all be locked up and deported. But then when it comes to Andrew and Tristan Tate, who are wanted, right, on very serious crimes, 7 further counts of rape, other charges relating to sex trafficking, indecent images of a child, sexual assault, 3 counts of arranging and facilitating trafficking for sexual exploitation, that they're also like, this is not fair. You can't go after the
So
Tate.
like it spoke, like even the dude spoke up earlier. They used the term sexual trafficking to put in the mind of the public that they were drug across state lines and all this. They're not mentioning that this is consensual adults, and this is a technicality that they've trunked up into a charge, right? So you got to kind of pay attention, right? Even if you're a civilian and you don't have, you feel like you don't have a dog in the fight. Whenever governments and law enforcement are taking one charge and breaking it into 5 different charges so they can get you on a lesser charge, you got to pay attention to that, because that may be you on court and trial one day. Having things that happened in your life exaggerated just so that they can charge you of something. You never know what enemies you may have in the court of public opinion or, across the bench, right? And when you're a public person like the Tates are, they've got plenty of enemies that are using their influence to try to get some charge. They wasn't able to do it in Romania. They wasn't able to do it in the United States. And now they're trying to, follow them around the globe. I mean, if they got if they spit out a piece of gum, they're going to try to charge them with that. Right? And I don't feel it's right.
Brothers, this is terrible. I don't understand how there are people on the right wing of politics who are adopting these 2 individuals, the kings of the manosphere, as some kind of hill to die on.
It's such a good question, Alex. And, when you talk about Islam, actually, that's something that is very prevalent within the manosphere. The Louis Theroux documentary, all about it, which I'm sure you probably hated because Louis is a bit wet and woke. But
Louis Theroux was a caricature or attempted caricature of what the manosphere is all about. The manosphere began to discuss men's issues with dating, marriage, paternity courts, serious issues, right? And so there's really a lot of thought leaders on that side that could have been interviewed in that Inside the Manosphere documentary, but instead Louis Theroux decided to go sensational. He decided to interview some of the younger characters, right, in the manosphere, and really try to get a immature lens on the manosphere to paint that as the whole thing, right? But it backfired because we live in the day of cameras, and just like you can bring your camera in and do a documentary on me, I can turn those cameras back on you and do a documentary on you. And whenever you put out your hit piece that's excluding a lot of my points that I made, counterpoints, and try to make me look a certain way, I can come back with the footage that I took and create that balance. So the Inside the Manosphere attempted hit piece that Louis Theroux did really kind of backfired on him. I'm sure he got a lot of views, but as far as the influence that he hoped to have, it didn't go anywhere.
It's very interesting when he interrogated how they do embed Islam into a lot of what they do, because they basically fester on the fact that a lot of incels come and join the movement and then like elements of what Islam does, and then they turn that into anti-Semitism. So you'll see a lot of people like Andrew Tate, H3 Tiki Toki saying F the Jews and putting terrible sentiment out there, along with this blatant disrespect for women, and this sort of
anything today, anything that don't kiss women ass is disrespect for women, right? So that's the reason why anything that is even minutely masculine today is called toxic masculinity, right? Because it just doesn't kowtow to how great women are and how women can do all and no wrong. And when you speak out about anything that is dishonest about women, rightfully so, then you're considered that you hate women, right? And you may just be pointing out characteristics about both of us, both sexes, that are honest and dishonest. And women can be dishonest just like men, and women can be users just like men, right? Men get used in paternity court all the time, right? And those are the issues that men speak out about, that they get accused of hating women for, right? So I'm sure Sarah Gill wouldn't mind if they came out and they sung the praises of women, and women can do no wrong, and everybody let's kiss women's ass. She'd love that. Anything critical about a woman, it must be misogyny.
Really interesting way that they portray modern day women and make so much money off impressionable young men by getting them into multi-level marketing and gambling enterprises. It's a whole thing that we would need hours to get into. But when it comes to the Andrew Tate stuff, I mean, they are absolute titans of the media. You can't say that they don't know what they're doing in their control of algorithms. And even though X, Facebook, they've tried to suppress a lot of what the Tate brothers are trying to do, and that's almost kind of martyrized them, because it makes them look like they are ones who have been snuffed out and free speech is at risk and blah, blah, blah. But they've actually made those charges make them look like they're the ones who are in the right, and it's the establishment against them. And to be fair to them, they haven't actually ever been found guilty. But, and we almost shouldn't be making vast assumptions that they are, but these are some very serious charges. 59 charges in total, actually, 42 against Andrew, and you've got 17 against his brother Tristan, and they were arrested, as we just spoke about, over the weekend, and that was actually the UK.
So once again, you see the mountain that you have to succumb when the public or the masses, not really all the masses, but a certain segment of the masses that have power, have something against you. I mean, she said it herself. It's been 3 years, and they haven't been able to charge him with anything credible. Now, all of a sudden, the UK is trying to recharge by putting out the number. It gives the impression to the public that they must have done something wrong. So by putting out 30 and 40 different charges, which are probably one charge or 2 or 3 charges broken up into different ways so that the number sounds bigger, then the layman person who doesn't know much about the law will assume that since there's smoke, there's fire. But somebody that's got experience with the government, myself, law enforcement, I know how they can take, you know what I'm saying, one charge and make it 5 different charges as a way to get you on one bigger charge. If they can't get the bigger charge, they got 3 lesser charges. So you're gonna be guilty of something, and they can rope you into something, right? They couldn't get Al Capone on anything other than tax evasion, but it was something, right? So yeah, and some people might say that was good because it was Al Capone. These two have done really nothing more than just be polarizing with their opinions about dating and women, right? And maybe they ran an OnlyFans or a cam situation in which a lot of the women that worked with them came out and said it was completely consensual, right? We're in a sexually liberated time right now where women are volunteering to go on cam or go on OnlyFans, and they're making contracts and business deals with other managers and things like that, which is totally consensual. These uh, governments are trying to turn that into prostitution, and you bent the arm and you made them do it with no real evidence. They haven't been able to do it yet, but what is evident is they're going to keep on charging them until they get something, which I think is bullshit. You know what I mean? Let's let it continue.
Stepping in, the CPS getting involved on American soil and saying that they have to be brought in.
I mean, this is what I don't understand.
Okay, there's another one too.
This is why I often say that
Here's another one too. When you add sexual trafficking, which by definition, in this case, involves adult women who were consensual, but since it may have crossed state lines, they can technically say that you trafficked them for this and that. So when you say sexual trafficking to the public, trafficking, you know, people think the worst. They think chains and you dragging people across and it's not that. So this also gives the public feeling on it. Oh my God, these must be bad guys. Then here's another magic brush is they try to find some way to put in child anything with children, right? I don't know how. I've got to learn more about the case to see, you know what I mean, what they're meaning with the child molestation and all of that, you know. But once they throw that in there, you know, obviously they know that it's going to turn kind of their public opinion, you know, on them, right? So this is a tactic that they're using to try to turn public opinion.
Right. Very often are just like the Islamists that they purport to hate, just like the Islamists. They have the same sort of rich seam of misogyny. They turn and go, we're for marriage and the family unit. Now they want a wife to shut up, be at home, not work, have a load of babies, know her blimmin' place. And didn't the Tates actually, Andrew Tate, convert to Islam at one point, you know, probably for marketing reasons. But then they're treating this like it's some sort of political lawfare. They're not a political party. They're not part of some sort of democratic movement. They have openly bragged about how to get a girl and make her do things, despicable, lurid acts online so they can make money off it. They basically, you know, there's a word for that. It begins with P and ends in imp. And they have actively been online saying that this is what we do. So it's not a made up allegation. That there's people who have a moral position on whether that's right or wrong. I think that is appalling, quite frankly, because a lot of women, it's essentially saying this is how to dupe a woman into doing these things because she's either stupid or she's probably vulnerable. Do you know what I mean? If it was,
absolutely.
And I find it utterly.
A woman could be 18 and vulnerable. She could be 38 and vulnerable, right? At no adult age is she ever mostly accountable for her own actions. She can always go back into, I was scared, I was manipulated, he made me feel like I had to do it, and he'll be the criminal. It's funny how many independent, strong women we have, but also when shit hits the fan, it's the man made me do it.
appalling when I'm seeing people who purport to be Mr. Family Values. I'm like the purity police. I'm all about morality. I'm right wing. I've got traditional values. Suddenly looking at these people who are going to be arrested to have this stuff interrogated, right? No charges have been brought yet. Maybe they won't be, but, you know, let us see, because this stuff needs to be investigated.
You
'Cause as
can't
said,
wait to see. Talking about let us see, it sounds like you made your mind up already, right? Many of the feminists, many of the male feminists, you know, many of the people, the progressives have already made their mind up already. They can't wait. They chomping at the bit to get something on the Tate brothers so that they can make a bigger political point that this type of masculinity, or the type of masculinity that they disapprove of, is on the run.
the allegations are piling up, multiple allegations. No smoke without fire on this stuff. This isn't have you put something hurty words online. These are real women who are saying.
Sometimes it is smoke, no fire. It's made up. Yeah, that's what they're hoping, is that people are going to start to feel that there must be fire because of all the smoke. So they're trying to create a lot of smoke around this.
Now, I was underage when this happened to me, or this was not my choice to be doing this stuff. I thought, but whatever. Do you know what I mean? Are we now saying, because if you turn around and go, well, that doesn't need to be, her voice doesn't need to be heard, it would be the same as saying about the victims of the grooming gangs, well, that little girl was just, you know, permissive and loose living. Her voice doesn't matter. You can't have it both ways.
Yes, and this has been brought by Bedfordshire Police. This is things that they did while...
Grooming is something that you really think of adults doing to children. So when women hide behind grooming and they're 18 plus, you know, basically it's like they're saying that they're children themselves, right? But they want it both ways. They want to be respected and treated as on equal standing as men. However, like I said, once the shit hits the fan, they want to hide behind they were groomed or manipulated
in the country, because to remind everyone, even though they kind of come across as these Romanian Americans, they are actually British citizens and were born and raised here. And it is all a facade. You know, I went on Piers Morgan's show and I was debating Andrew Tate at one point about a year ago, and it's hilarious because the guy lives a lie. I spoke to people on Piers's team who have gone to his house, and I'm just saying this in my opinion, but he basically lives on a warehouse in the side of the road in Romania, and what he purports to be as his house is actually some sort of movie set. So it is a confected, basically, organization that he's trying to sell to impressionable young men. And you're right about the women getting left behind in the process. And you're also right, Alex, and really bang on about the fact that it's antithetical to the conservative movement, what he is doing. He makes everyone else look bad with his ridiculous actions, and all he is a money-hungry cretin who would like to exploit what people like you have built in terms of conservatism and profit off it. And we've got no time for him. I'm very happy to see him potentially in prison if he is found guilty of these charges. But as it stands, you're right. He's painting himself just like a political prisoner.
And he absolutely is not. And I hope that this is pressure now on Donald Trump to intervene and block the extradition. Do not do it, Donald. Send them here. Let these investigations take place. The allegations against them are extremely grave and extremely serious. And if there is not a proper criminal investigation, if that is obstructed, then that is a message saying that actually, if you're a woman and a man wants to abuse you, if a man wants to exploit you, if you're vulnerable, guess what? We don't give anything. We don't give a damn. And we know we live in a world now. Let's just finish on this, Samara, because I keep saying, you know, when I was growing up, I was born in 1983. We had Elizabeth II on the throne, one of the greatest monarchs of all time, alongside Elizabeth I, up the girls. We had Margaret Thatcher in number 10, one of the greatest prime ministers of all time. I wanted to be a fighter pilot growing up. It was the very first female fighter pilot was made, and that was what was on my bedroom wall, that newspaper cutting. Now, in 2026, did I think I was going to be living in a world world where people are shuffling about in burqas, where women were being abused by migrant men with misogynistic attitudes who get beatified and the women are shut down, that this scandal of the rape gangs would be exposed, where everything's hypersexualized, where porn is everywhere, where children are sexually abusing one another because they're being exposed to the most brutal, disgusting, violent content, where society is falling apart. There's a battle of the sexes. Our rights are fewer than ever before. We are vilified online. Life has never been more difficult as a woman. What is going on, Sam? What is going on?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to say after that. I love your monologues, Alex. I live for them, genuinely. No, you're completely right. It's the pornification of our society, unfortunately, and it cuts both ways. Both women have been indoctrinated to being overly promiscuous, and, we've been sold this absolute lie about...
Once again, the women have been indoctrinated. They've been manipulated to sell their own body. No, what's actually happened is, unlike in the 90s, you don't have to go to a studio to shoot adult content. You don't have to go to a strip club to work as a stripper. You can just set your camera up in your bedroom and have some incel sending you money in the comfort of your own home. So hoeing and prostitution has never been easier. And women are cashing in on that, but then regretting it later, right? But as a part of the rebound, they can say they were indoctrinated, they were manipulated, they were groomed, but they refuse to give back the proceeds that they make. It's a choice that you made. You chose that it was an easier road to sell your body than to get a degree or get a job or get a career or find a husband. You profited from it. And then when the natural social judgment comes and you don't want to hoe no more, right? You want to be able to blame it on the patriarchy, the male society that made you feel cheap and that you had to do it. And it was a social economic pressure. We all got economic pressure. I got economic pressure to pay bills. You don't see me prostituting myself to pay bills. You know what I mean? Or selling drugs or doing things that are otherwise immoral just to make ends meet. So you get no pass on that. Like I was young and you were young. You wanted the luxury. You wanted fast life, much like a dope dealer would, and you enjoyed it. And it has its consequences. So you don't get to turn around and blame it on the society, men at large. I wouldn't have made all this money if all these men weren't sending me money. Men are, newsflash, men are titillated by nude women. God made it that way. God made Eve and Adam in attraction that way. So if there's anybody manipulating anyone, it's you manipulating and drawing in the lonely men out there that don't either have a wife or a woman or they have no outlet, right? They're embarrassed, they're shy, they can't meet women, and the only outlet they have is to pretend a facsimile of a relationship online where they can see some titty and some boob, right? And you are manipulating and benefiting from that advantage or that leverage. So, nobody in this is a victim, and you definitely don't get to be the victim when you profit, right, from being OnlyFans, cam girl, any other type of pornography, and now it's the men who manipulated you into doing it. Just take it on the chin.
What it is to be a woman in the 21st century that actually is very, very totally the opposite of progressive if you think about it. And then on the other side, you've got men and how they're actually being indoctrinated. And, for a society that's trying to be all gender fluid and not have any tags on anything and just, go about as we are the most segregated that we've ever been as men and women. And that's probably part of the issue here. And it translates into real world violence, with the trans community and the way that they seek out to go and kill others, as we've seen in America. But it also can can be very, very harmful to teenagers. But unfortunately, people like the Labour government want to suppress free speech, take the social media away because they want to put a band-aid over a bullet hole here. And I agree with you. We need to look at the very deep issues within society and go from there. But my goodness, I don't know where to start with that one.
Oh, I don't know either. Samara, go get yourself a nice cup of tea or a three-fingered gin and tonic. You deserve it, my girl.
All right, that's enough on that, man. I think I got all worked up off that. So we're gonna close that out right here, man. If you got difference of opinion, comments, or whatever, put them in the comments. I'm happy to have the discussion, respectfully. If I see your comment, if you got something on it. Other than that, man, if you like, my videos or comments, I'll put some more, make some more available. Either in the playlist, comment, subscribe, share, all the good stuff, and talk to y'all later.